Hello everybody, out for a walk again at Willow Lake. Beautiful fall colors, but I'm out here today talking about leadership. I could be doing this from the comfort of my home office. I've got a nice little studio set up there. I could sit on my butt and talk to you about what I know about leadership, but the good news that I want to bring is about what outdoor leadership and my experience out there can do to inform what's going on in corporations and businesses and nonprofits now. And so the medium is the message, right? So this being outside, this going for a hike, this being in the natural world and telling stories is where I'm at my best and my most authentic. So that's why I load up the vlogging camera and come out of here. So this inspires me out here, even though it's only just 5 minutes from my house. Hopefully it inspires and interests you. And like I said, I'm going to tell a story about another backpacking trip, but this time in the Grand Canyon with a storm coming in and the campsite just barely coming into sight. But let's go over there and tell that story. So I could see my group, the family, the small client group that I was leading on this trip in the Grand Canyon. I could see them kind of strung out behind me on the trail. And behind them, I could see the storm coming in from the west and rain beginning to fall on the plateaus off in the distance. And I could also see the campsite that we needed to get to about a half a mile away. And I knew that I needed to get my group from there down to that site before this storm hit, so we could get the tents up before the winds came and we could get dinner in our bellies before it started getting really cold. And I was feeling anxious and I was feeling concerned. I knew that we were all tired. This was the end of a very long day where we'd hiked from the rim all the way down to the bottom of the canyon and halfway back out. And I felt that anxiety and I felt that concern and I felt that impatience because I just want to get there so I can get dinner and I can get a hot meal and I can get in the tent. But I could see my group struggling behind me. Mom wanted to camp right where she was. She was done. Dad had hidden from us the fact that he had hidden from me the fact that he had knee surgery, I think only 6 months or 8 months previously. And the two 13-year-old twin boys were in their own little world as they'd been on this whole trip. They had been distracted and in their own head. They had to be told repeatedly to put sunscreen on. They had to be asked repeatedly to help out in the kitchen. They were slow to move in the morning. And I thought, oh, okay. Storm, group, campground. Now, I could have done what a lot of leaders do in situations of urgency and danger and with a group that is not on board. I could have gone full drill sergeant and put a ton of energy into telling them exactly what needed to happen and that they needed to get going and they needed to shape up and Dad needed to stop complaining about his knee and Mom needed to stop fantasizing about this other campsite and these kids had better shape up and pay attention because this is what we're going to do. But I wanted something different because I was going to be with this group for multiple days and I wanted to have a working relationship with them after this particular crisis. There were more difficulties to come, right? We had to eventually climb all the way out of the canyon. And I wanted to be in relationship, be in positive working relationship. And I know that the drill sergeant routine would not have gotten me to that goal. And I also wanted them to have an experience, have their own real experience, and to learn and develop as people through this process, rather than just have me essentially carry them with my emotional energy and my directive energy. So lots of leaders are in crisis right now. Lots of leaders in the nonprofit world, in the business world, and even just in families, in the classroom, are in crisis right now. lots of things being thrown at us, storms coming in over the horizon, lack of work, lack of clients, lack of employees, lack of fundraising, too many people trying to use the Wi-Fi at once, trying to figure out how to use Zoom, trying to figure out how to homeschool the kids. We are in crisis right now. And even after we get the vaccine, there's going to be more difficulties ahead. There always are, right? So what can leaders do in this situation to stay in relationship and to create positive relationships for those they lead? Well, we need to be adaptable. We need to be willing to shift our own internal thinking away from being strictly goal-oriented toward having a larger view of success. We also need to call out the best in others. This is sort of person-centered leadership rather than goal-centered leadership. Obviously, the goal was important. It was not negotiable. But I could maintain a person-centered leadership in this particular situation. And as leaders, we can also work to call out the best in others. And that's what I did first. I got those two young men, those two 13-year-olds, together with me, and I said, okay, do you see what's happening? Do you see the storm? Yes. Do you see the campsite? Yes. Do you see those two flat spaces? Yes. By asking them those questions, I already have agreement with them. Can you see reality? Can you see the goal? They said yes. I said, can you take the tents out of your mom's and dad's packs so that their packs are lighter and go set those two tents up down in those two flat spots that we can see from here so that the tents are ready by the time we get there? And they said yes. I said, it's very important that you do this. Do you know how to set up those tents? They said yes. And something arose in them because I called for it from them. They hadn't been called to do anything important in their lives, probably. And now they had a purpose. And they were joined with me in that purpose. And then I turned to mom and dad, and it was important that I not shame them. It's very important that leaders don't add to the burdens that all of us are already carrying, right? I was angry that Dad had hidden his medical issues from me and from the guiding company, but there wasn't anything to do about it now. So what he needed was not blame and shame, because he was already in that in his head. He needed help and he needed empathy. So the kids took the tent out of his pack. I took the food out of his pack without even asking him and put it in mine. And I said, I know that you're hurting. I know that your knee hurts a lot right now. Can you make it to camp with your pack a little bit lighter? I didn't tell him he had to make it to camp. I asked him if he could. Again, inviting him in rather than telling him what needed to happen. And he said yes. And it was still painful for him, but he knew that I was on his side because I empathized with him. I didn't add to his shame. Again, person-centered leadership. So he followed his boys down to camp. And then I went to his mom and said, I know you want to camp right here. I know you're tired. I know you want to be done. But I want us to be all together. Are you willing to join your family down there? She didn't really have much of a choice at this point. Her family and the tents and all the food was already heading down in that direction. But I said, are you willing to walk with me so that we can rejoin your family? And she said yes. So again, there was this goal that wasn't negotiable, and there were two ways to get to it. We all have goals in our business, in our communities, in our families, and there are different ways to get to those goals. And if we choose a person-centered leadership that calls for and invites the best out of people, that requires the leader to set aside a bunch of anxiety and concern. All of us leaders are filled with anxiety and concern right now, but can we set that aside long enough to ask people to join us and to call out the best in them? And I know that when I do that, I end up feeling much less anxious, much more supported, and I find that I have more energy to lead. Before this had happened on this trail, I was tired, I was cranky, my knees hurt, my back hurt, and I ended up carrying more weight that last half mile with a lighter spirit than I had since we'd started that morning, because I was now surrounded by a group that was saying yes to me. I was now surrounded by a bunch of clients, a bunch of team members who were saying yes. And that makes my job as the leader so much more fun and so much less isolating, and so many more possibilities open up when we do that. So I encourage all of you as leaders who are listening to this to think of somebody in your organization or your family, or maybe even in your client list, that you can ask more of. Who can you invite into greatness? Who can you empathize with? Who's hurting right now? Who needs a little bit of your attention? And who can you walk with through their difficulties? Is there one of those three kinds of people that you can interact with today in a person-centered way and feel your leadership burden actually get lighter and have more fun? Thanks for coming on a walk with me today. Thanks for coming out to the lake. I really appreciate it.